Welcome to Wellness Fixes the Pod, a by Maven media production, where we believe you deserve real education from real experts delivered in a way you can actually use. I'm Dr. Kelsy Vick, your board-certified orthopedic doctor of physical therapy, and this podcast was built for the girl who is done feeling overwhelmed and frustrated by conflicting health noise and is ready for something she can actually trust. Every week, we have honest, science-backed conversations about your health, your hormones, your brain, your body, and everything in between. No fluff, no fear-mongering, just the truth. Because understanding your body is the most powerful thing you can do for yourself. A table full of experts built for the curious girl who wants the truth. So welcome. Your seat is waiting for you. What if I told you the single most important thing you can do between now and your wedding day has nothing to do with your workout routine, your skincare, or your fueling patterns, and everything to do with learning to read the most sophisticated health tracking system your body has? Because your body has been sending you a monthly report card for pretty much your entire life. Most of us just never learned how to read it, and hopefully allows you to view your body as the superwoman that it is. You'll be able to see in real time your relationship with your body transform from confusion to complete literacy. And that's one of the most powerful things you can carry with you into your wedding day and every day after. It is the gift that keeps on giving, the wedding gift that keeps on giving. What if I told you the single most important thing you can do between now and your wedding day has nothing to do with your workout routine, your skincare, or your fueling patterns, and everything to do with learning to read the most sophisticated health tracking system your body has? Because your body has been sending you a monthly report card for pretty much your entire life. Most of us just never learned how to read it. Welcome back to Wellness Fixes the Pod. I'm your host, Dr. Kelsy Vick, a board-certified orthopedic doctor of physical therapy and a pelvic floor physical therapist. And we've talked about the workouts, we've talked about the body recomposition, but there is one wedding prep tool that nobody, not your wedding coordinator, not your venue, not your florist, probably not even your mom, your sister, or your best friends, is putting in your planning timeline. But it has been running your body every single month of your life, and that's your menstrual cycle. So let's talk about science-backed wedding prep and one of the most important things you can do to go from 1,000 times yes to I do on your wedding day. My sister is getting married this month, which really inspired this series, talking about science-backed, research-backed wedding prep that we all can incorporate, whether or not we are the bride, the maid of honor, a bridesmaid, a wedding guest, or even if we just don't have a wedding, we just want to hear how to feel the best and look the best in our bodies for a certain event or activity or big milestone that we have coming up, or even just for fun. And today we're going to chat about the menstrual cycle, which is something that so many girls can benefit from learning, not only to help them feel their best on their wedding day and to use as a tool throughout their wedding prep, but also when it comes to post-wedding, if you are looking to start a family, it helps to learn it now so that when you are looking into your fertility and what all goes into getting pregnant or not getting pregnant, you have a better idea of how your body is working every single month. So knowing your cycle can help you schedule really stressful events in your wedding planning era during the times of your cycle where you can feel more motivated, more beautiful, more like yourself. Something like your hair and makeup trial, if you're scheduling it possibly in your luteal phase or that back half of your cycle, maybe your mindset in approaching that trial is going to be one of negativity already. Where if you're scheduling it during your follicular phase, you might already feel beautiful. So it can totally change the vibe of how you experience certain things in this engagement era. It can also help you understand how your body might feel on your wedding day, given the time of the month that you're in or the phase of your cycle that you're in. So it can really help with scheduling the grace that you give yourself on your wedding day, figuring out and experimenting what can help your body feel the best on that big day. It means working with your body, not against it. It makes making better fueling and workout and rest and recovery decisions throughout your entire engagement to where you're able to show up each and every day as the best version of yourself, as well as showing up on your wedding day feeling the most confident in your body and in who you are. Your menstrual cycle is not an inconvenience, it's data. And data is the most powerful wedding prep tool you've been given. Your menstrual cycle is so much more than just a period tracker or an ovulation tracker. It can really help give insight into how your body is doing physiologically, how you are doing mental health wise, how motivated you are, how tired and fatigued you are, how your body might respond after a certain workout. It gives so much more insight than the days of your period and your ovulation day. We just have to learn to become more aware of what each of those signs and symptoms are telling us. Understanding your own menstrual cycle, not just the days of your period or ovulation, but the entire 28-ish day cycle, can help you understand why you might feel so motivated at one point in your cycle and not as motivated the next. Why your workout feels absolutely incredible in your body during one day, and then 2 weeks later, you do the same workout and feel absolutely miserable. It gives you insight into why one meal might make you feel so strong and so lean, and why that same meal 2 weeks later might leave you feeling a little puffy and sluggish. It helps you understand why your digestion and cravings might differ throughout the month. And it can also help you understand why your sleep quality changes throughout your menstrual cycle. So I never want us to look at our menstrual cycle as something that we have to work against or fight back against, but something that we can work with to really feel the best in our bodies. And I feel like understanding your menstrual cycle allows me, at least, and hopefully allows you to view your body as the superwoman that it is, as the way that we can understand what's happening within our bodies physiologically based on our symptoms and be able to adjust certain behaviors that we do to really help us feel the best, no matter the phase of our menstrual cycle that we're in. So let's go phase by phase, talk about what's happening within our bodies physiologically, what you might feel, and how we can use those symptoms that time in your cycle in the best way in your engagement era. Starting with phase one. Phase one is your period. It's that days 1 through 5. It's that menstrual phase and that early follicular phase, which the phases are labeled based on what's happening in the ovaries or in your uterus. So there's different ways that we can categorize different phases. So I'll try and give both. I typically like to talk about it as follicular and luteal because it's easy for me to remember 2 categories compared to like 4, including ovulation. Ovulation is part of both. So technically 3 compared to 5, but I like thinking about it as like early follicular, late follicular, ovulation, and then early luteal and late luteal. So phase 1 is typically that days 1 through 5 when you're on your period. And it is the menstrual phase and the early follicular phase. So what's actually happening within our bodies? The sharp decline in progesterone at the end of your previous cycle triggers a systemic inflammatory response. This is the biological driver of most period symptoms and is documented across multiple research studies. But it's also what allows your period to happen. So it's not a bad thing. Inflammation is necessary within the body, and it's necessary within your menstrual cycle. White blood cell count, or those immune cell counts, also decrease, which means your immune system might be a little shaky, but it also allows our immune system not to fight the process that naturally needs to happen within our bodies. Our ability to regulate blood sugar is also slightly impaired in this phase. So your appetite might become less predictable and you might notice yourself having more cravings, which if you're like me, yes, definitely. So how can we actually work with this phase, knowing all of these changes that are happening in days 1 through 5 when we're on our period? When it comes to nutrition, expect appetite changes and expect blood sugar regulation challenges. For me, I know hydration really helps fight against this, in addition to really focusing on getting enough macronutrients and micronutrients from whole food sources in my diet. So rather than pulling for the salty snack that I might want, I try and check in. Am I hydrated well enough? Do I actually just want water? Or is this craving of a salty food, can that be satiated with something like sauerkraut or dill pickles or vegetables and cottage cheese? Something that might give me a little bit more sustenance than that salty tortilla chip that I actually feel like I'm craving. The same thing can be said for sweet cravings. Oftentimes I'm craving dark chocolate or something sugary like ice cream. So if you have this awareness of, okay, yes, my appetite is changing, my blood sugar is not as regulated as it might be later on in this follicular phase. So how can I make sure to have the fuel that I need, the macronutrients, the micronutrients, the vitamins, the minerals that I need so that I can combat these cravings and this lack of blood sugar regulation in the best way? Since this is also an inflammatory phase, we can start to think about fueling with anti-inflammatory foods to help with that general feeling of like puffiness and bloatedness that we might get because of this systemic inflammation. So thinking omega-3s, colorful fruits and veggies, things like fish, berries, peppers, and then seasonings and condiments that might also have anti-inflammatory properties like turmeric, ginger, and healthy fats like olive oils. We're also losing blood in this phase, which I have to give a shout out to my sister because she is so thoughtful when it comes to this. I will tell her I'm on my period, as all girls do. We just talk about it. And I went over to her house for dinner one night and she had cooked steak because she knew that I was in a phase of blood loss and that I needed iron in my diet to help. So focusing on iron and really blood building type of foods can really help in this phase. Red meat, lentils, spinach, pumpkin seeds, in addition to adding foods high in vitamin C, red bell peppers, peppers in general, citrus, strawberries, vitamin C, all that help with our body's ability to absorb iron. Antioxidants are also huge. So dark chocolate, I'm a huge dark chocolate fan in general, but dark chocolate can really help with some of the symptoms in this phase. Berries, green tea, pomegranate, all support our body's increased antioxidant demand during this inflammatory phase. Making sure to get enough vegetables and leafy greens to allow for a good, well-rounded micronutrient protocol too. And as I said earlier, hydration is super important. I oftentimes feel like when I have cravings, if I just drink 12 ounces of water, sometimes that completely subsides, which allows me the time to check in. Is it actually something that I want, or is my body just sending that signal when it really needs something else, like water? When it comes to movement in this first phase, exercise is always going to be key. I should preface all of this by saying this is not cycle syncing. This is understanding what's happening within your body and being able to implement behaviors with fueling, with movement, with sleep hygiene, with giving your body grace because of what's happening within your brain. It's understanding the science and the physiology behind your menstrual cycle and being able to support it with different foods and movement and other strategies that might help. So it is definitely not cycle syncing. It's not one size fits all either, which is why I think this is one of the most beneficial things you can do in this season of engagement in your bridal era, because it allows time for experimentation, for learning your body. What I'm sharing with you today is what's happening physiologically in general, but I have met so many girls who tell me different things that help their bodies in certain phases compared to my own body. So it's helpful to understand the science, but it's also helpful to be able to map it to your own body and figure out what your own body needs and what your own body might benefit from during a certain phase. So exercise during any phase is not contraindicated. It is great for all symptoms and all phases. Just because you're in an inflammatory phase right now does not mean you need to be doing light exercise or low intensity exercise. Some of the time, myself included, the first day of my period, I'm feeling so strong. I'm feeling so powerful because we're also in that follicular phase. Our bodies are prepping and priming and getting all of the hormonal regulation and appetite regulation and blood sugar regulation. And all of that is about to become the most optimal out of all phases of our cycle. So it's okay if that also hits a little early during your period. It doesn't mean you have to adjust your workout routine based on what you think you should be doing, when in reality, what your body wants and needs and desires at that time is lifting the heavy weights or running the harder distances or increasing intensity with your sprint interval training or high intensity interval training. It is so individualized, and even within the individual, it can vary cycle to cycle. So the research supports exercise in all phases of your menstrual cycle and not one form of exercise over the other, which is why I want to make sure people understand this is not cycle syncing. It's just understanding what's happening within your body and being able to have the knowledge to understand why your body's responding to something differently, possibly during different phases of your cycle. So exercise during the menstrual phase is hugely beneficial. Yes, it causes momentary inflammation. That inflammation is needed to allow for all of the benefits of exercise to occur, but it also has anti inflammatory properties and really good antioxidant properties. So, both super beneficial for us in this menstrual phase. The endorphins that are released during exercise are also hugely beneficial. Something to note, you might recognize that muscle activation and recovery takes a little bit longer during this phase, and that's okay. If you start to realize, like, hey, I can't jump into my workout as quickly as I can, 6 days from now, maybe spend a little longer in your warm up. Maybe allow yourself a little longer recovery in between your working sets. It's those sorts of adjustments that can be made once you have the knowledge of what's happening within your body. During your menstrual phase, when you're on your period, there's certain cognitive benefits that you might actually be able to take advantage of. Research suggests we have improved cognitive abilities when it comes to more advanced brain tasks that we have to do, like deep thinking, planning, and creative problem solving. So this might be your best phase for vendor research, reviewing wedding contracts, wedding budget analysis, or writing your vows. It might not be the best phase for that hair and makeup trial, dress fittings, high stakes vendor meetings, or engagement photos. But due to the cognitive benefits, it is one of the best phases for all of the deep thinking, administrative, and planning tasks that require focus and strategic thinking. So if you happen to have any of those things scheduled during this phase, just make sure to understand what's happening in your body and give yourself a little bit of grace, especially if your hair and makeup trial does fall during your period. Understand that, okay, if you feel this way during your hair and makeup trial right now, just know maybe 6 days from now, you might feel like the most confident version of yourself. So give yourself a little grace. Don't read into it too much. Knowing what's happening within your mind and body during phase 1 or this menstrual phase and early follicular phase of your menstrual cycle. Phase 2, or those days 6 through 13, is sort of your glowing era. This is where most girls feel their absolute best. And I'll say this is when I feel my best. This is when my exercise is amazing. I feel so good. I feel so strong. I recover so well. It's when I feel the most lean. It's when I'm most motivated and creative. I love this phase, and I think most girls will agree. I will say as a caveat, there have been some months where I have a real mental health challenge in this phase, and it really throws me for a loop because I know that typically my mental health is like top notch in this phase. So there are some months and some days when these patterns might not apply to your life, and that's okay. It doesn't mean something's broken, but something to just be aware of and be like, oh, I'm in my follicular phase, but I'm really struggling with making this decision or feeling a little bit down about this aspect of my wedding. Just taking mental note of that and realizing typically your mental health might be the most optimal in this state. And if it's still affecting you, it must need to be resolved. It must be something that you need to make a decision on or talk to somebody about because it is affecting you during one of the best phases for most girls' mental health. And this is just a blank slate statement that might not apply to you. So that's why it's important to understand your own cycle. And maybe you do notice that typically you feel down during this phase. That's okay. But understanding that's where your body is compared to what might be the population average. So this is the late follicular and the proliferative phase. And in this phase, estrogen is rising. And it's doing remarkable things across our entire system. Your skin, your energy, your mood, your ability to recover, your ability to exercise, your motivation, all of those things are benefiting simultaneously from this rise in estrogen. Blood pressure is also at its lowest point throughout the entire cycle. So cardiovascular exercise might physiologically feel a little bit easier in this phase. A 2025 systematic review actually showed that the follicular phase is associated with improved aerobic performance and more favorable recovery compared to other phases. Another systematic review confirmed that strength and power parameters also showed favorable trends in this follicular phase. So diving into how your fueling and nutrition might feel in this phase. Your blood sugar is most stable here, so you might notice the least amount of cravings over your entire cycle. Protein remains a non-negotiable, especially if you're pushing yourself in your exercise routine because it's just feeling good. Protein remains super important. Complex carbohydrates are really, really good for you in all phases, but especially in this phase, since our body is able to use fuel a little more efficiently in this phase, we want to be able to support that. So things like Oats, sweet potatoes, quinoa, brown rice, all great in all phases again, but you might want to incorporate them a little bit more in this phase, knowing that your body is just using that fuel super efficiently. The really important thing here is you do not want to undereat. In order to maintain all of these really positive variables that happen in this sort of glowing phase of your menstrual cycle, we want to make sure that our body has enough resources to utilize to fuel all the processes that need to happen for us to feel that way. When it comes to movement, physiologically, this is our peak performance time. You might notice increased flexibility, increased aerobic capacity, and better recovery during this phase. Muscle tissue repair and adaptation are also optimized in this phase. And all of these really positive variables means that it's really easy to overtrain in this phase. And since your blood sugar is pretty regulated, you're feeling pretty good, your body's using fuel efficiently, you might also be tempted to underfuel. So we need to continue to fuel appropriately and not undereat, and also make sure to incorporate those recovery days, even though our bodies might feel like we want to just exercise and exercise and exercise because we feel so good. This is generally the phase that you can push new personal bests, you can increase weight in your strength training, increase repetitions, improve volume and intensity in some way. This is not saying you have to or you shouldn't. It's just saying you might feel like doing that. And that's just saying your body might be craving something like that. And that's okay, given this sort of optimized feeling that we have in our bodies when it comes to fueling and movement. And lastly, it's also a very optimal time for our brain health. Motivation and energy are elevated. This is like my natural and probably your natural, like, let's go out there, let's do it sort of phase. Your confidence might be higher. Communication feels easier. Social energy is at its peak. This is not a coincidence or mood. It is hormonally influenced. So when it comes to preparing for your wedding, this is the phase for everything high stakes. Your hair and makeup trial, engagement photo sessions, final dress fitting, difficult family conversations, first meeting with new vendors, or anything that makes you a little more nervous, you can schedule it in this phase. You might be able to schedule it in this phase and utilize the confidence and the easier communication that you have in this phase to help in those meetings. I often plan my most intense workouts, the workouts where I'm pushing my weight here, because I know that my body will enjoy it and will love it. And that's not saying that I also won't put them somewhere else if my body likes it, but I know that my body is prepped and primed for muscle building and recovery in this phase. So I usually try and push it in my workouts. But as always, notice how your body feels. This is why it's so important in this engagement season to really understand what's happening in your body and listen to it, because what I'm telling you here might not be the same for your body. It is the general population experience, I guess, but you might have a drastically different experience based on your cycle and your hormones. And it's important to be able to understand, read, and listen to your body for both your fitness, your health, your mental health, your physical health, your social life, your brain health, but also to understand your fertility for later on, where if you are trying to get pregnant or not trying to get pregnant, some of these symptoms and understanding how your body responds in different phases of your menstrual cycle is really going to give you that extra insight for either getting pregnant or not getting pregnant, depending on what your goals are after the wedding. So the next phase is days 14 through 21, and this includes your ovulation and then also your early luteal phase. So in this phase, your resting heart rate and your exercise heart rate both increase, meaning the same workout at the same intensity done in this phase compared to the follicular phase might require more cardiovascular demands and will feel physiologically harder. Your immunity gets a little bit of a boost. And when we covered the menstrual cycle, we've covered it so many times, so many episodes, and the research just keeps evolving. So I'm sure we'll revisit it again in sort of a phase by phase way. But I remember reading back in the fall some of the research and some of the hypotheses why our immunity improves during this phase. And it is hypothesized that should we become pregnant and should an egg get fertilized, we want to have a body and environment that is able to protect that growing baby. So that's why your immune system might ramp up at this phase in order to protect a potentially growing baby inside of you. This is the phase where your body temperature also raises. That affects both exercise quality and sleep, unfortunately. So nutrition in this phase, hydration becomes an even bigger priority. I mentioned hydration. Hydration is always important, but in that early follicular phase, that period phase, Sometimes I utilize hydration as a tool to help with cravings and blood sugar regulation. In this phase, hydration's super important because of that elevated body temperature. Our ability to thermoregulate is a little bit limited in this phase. Protein both before and after exercise is super critical so that our body senses safety, that we have enough fuel for the exercise that we're about to partake in. That's the benefit of early protein and carbohydrates before the workout, in addition to after the workout, so that we can appropriately rebuild after exercise. Our body has a harder time recovering in this phase and really rebuilding in this phase. So we want to make sure that those building blocks for that recovery are readily available. Our blood sugar becomes a little less stable around ovulation. So making sure to hit all of those macronutrient and micronutrient components and making sure to get protein and complex carbohydrates in combination. Focusing on anti-inflammatory foods to prepare for the end of that luteal phase when inflammation starts to cue that shedding of the lining that happens during our period. There are also foods that can support progesterone production. Zinc-rich foods like pumpkin seeds, chickpeas, and beef help us support our hormonal transition into that luteal phase. When it comes to movement, your heart rate will run measurably higher during the same workout. And the research confirms this is physiological, not a fitness regression. So don't worry about it. It just helps to understand that a workout might feel a little more intense in this phase compared to the same workout in the follicular phase. And recovery might feel a little bit slower in this phase. So just being aware that your body might not feel as great after a certain workout compared to in the follicular phase. So what's happening mentally? Rising, then falling progesterone brings emotional sensitivity, which I definitely resonate with, and slight lethargy as this phase progresses, which I also resonate with. Completely hormonal, not a personality shift. I've talked about this a lot. I feel like the unlock for me when it came to learning my own menstrual cycle was being able to give myself grace when it came to my mental health. I would feel so negative in this phase, so just down on myself, so emotional. And then once I learned that was actually related to my hormones and not who I am, I started to make light of the situation and understand that give myself a few days and I'll feel so much better. When I had Dr. Sam Moore on back in January, where we talked female physiology, performance training, all the things, we joked that I always say, that's not real Kelsy. That's fake Kelsy in the luteal phase. It's not real Kelsy. The real me is in the follicular phase. So it's a fun way to personify or to separate yourself from what you think is happening within your brain. That's not a personality shift, but more of a hormonal shift. Some women might feel most connected and most social around ovulation. That is also okay. Sometimes that's my experience, not very often. So this is maybe where I divert from the norm. But during ovulation, that day 14, 15, plus or minus 3 days, you might feel a little bit more social, a little bit more connected, and that's okay too. So when it comes to how to apply all of these principles to your wedding, you might adjust your workout intensity and frequency and really prioritize recovery in this phase, understanding that maybe pushing yourself in a certain exercise and allowing longer rest in between some of those exercises, or day by day, allowing maybe 2 to 3 strength training days, 1 or 2 cardio days, followed by a little bit more recovery days in this phase. This also might not be the phase for high stakes meetings or highly stressful situations. Just like we talked about the immunity piece of this puzzle, where our immune system is actually heightened in this phase for the potentially evolutionary reason of protecting the growing baby inside of us. The same thing has been said about mentally what happens within our brains, where in our follicular phase, we are more likely to chase opportunities. That's our focus. And in the luteal phase, we're more likely to sort of protect against potentially negative experiences and protect ourselves and the potential growing baby. So our brain is on high alert to anything that might be considered threatening, whether that is an actual threat or whether that's just something that we sense as threatening because we are feeling stress or anxiety about that meeting or that activity or that conversation. So just another thing to be aware of, that it's a really cool thing within our bodies that we have these built-in ways of protecting. If your goal is to get pregnant, where our immune system ramps up, our mind starts to become one of a little bit more protecting our space and protecting our environment to protect the growing baby inside of us. And we can link that back to the way our bodies were created to protect life growing inside of us. And I like to think of it from, a safari perspective or a mama lion's perspective of trying to protect her growing cub and becoming more on high alert because of that. So, last phase is that late luteal phase where your body is really trying to prepare for your period. It's day 22 to 28. It is that late luteal in the secretory phase. So, the decline in estrogen and progesterone triggers that inflammatory response, which affects our muscle performance, our exercise performance, our aerobic performance, our cardiovascular performance, everything. Our blood sugar becomes a little less stable, so you might experience a few more cravings in this phase. You might also get PMS symptoms or premenstrual symptoms. And I did an episode a few weeks back talking about how I'm creating my hottest version of myself in this trimester 0 phase before I consider pregnancy and starting a family. And I talked about how adjusting my fueling has really helped with some of these symptoms that I've had during this late luteal phase and my period. So highly recommend take a look at that episode. I'll leave the link to it below. That way, if you guys are curious, but there are ways to positively affect these symptoms. And I think when we're talking about wedding prep and engagement prep, a lot of this process is experimentation. So it's figuring out, okay, I do experience bloating and irritability, but can I adjust my fueling patterns, my hydration patterns, my workout patterns, my sleep hygiene in order to positively affect those symptoms so that, when you're on your honeymoon and you might be in your late luteal phase or on your wedding day in your late luteal phase, you'll have a better understanding of how to help your body in that phase, knowing what's happening underneath the surface. Sleep is also directly impacted by this drop in estrogen and progesterone. So connecting it back to our lymphatic system episode or that brain cleansing episode that we did, the deep sleep stage, that cleansing phase of our sleep cycle is hugely affected by these hormonal shifts. For nutrition, all of the same pillars apply. This is why I hate the term cycle syncing. Same with exercise. The pillars are the same, but understand what's happening within your body can really help adjust and maximize some of the different foods and nutrients that these foods offer during different phases of your cycle. So focusing on complex carbohydrates, fiber, protein, really balanced meals to help with that blood sugar stabilization. All of these things also help with serotonin production, which can help with our mood, especially in this phase. Things like sweet potatoes, oats, brown rice, legumes, vegetables, chia seeds, flax seeds, protein at every meal, Greek yogurt, meats, all of these sorts of things can really help. Another focus on antioxidants and anti-inflammatory foods, like in all the phases, right? We need all of these things. But if we can understand why, I feel like that also helps me want to purposefully choose some of those ingredients for my meals. So omega-3s, turmeric, ginger, dark leafy greens, berries, all of these directly target the inflammatory driver of PMS symptoms. In this phase, really focusing on sleep-supporting foods and supplements, things like magnesium, bananas, oats, walnuts, tart cherry, dark chocolate, pumpkin seeds, all of these things are sleep-promoting foods. This is something I need to focus on because I notice my sleep hugely affected in this phase. Foods to reduce or eliminate in this phase, processed foods. Research has consistently linked them to worse PMS symptoms, which is likely why a lot of my symptoms last menstrual cycle were so much better because I had pretty much eliminated a lot of the processed foods that I was eating in my diet. Limit alcohol. As we said in our liver and hormonal connection episode, alcohol is prioritized in the liver. And one of the liver's jobs is helping with estrogen and with hormonal balance. So if alcohol is having to be metabolized in the liver, it deprioritizes some of its other roles in hormonal balance. You also might experience an increased appetite in this phase. It's okay to honor that. Your body is asking for more fuel because it genuinely needs more fuel, and it's okay to listen to that cue that your body's giving you. When it comes to movement in this phase, exercise is one of the most research-backed ways to help with a lot of the symptoms that a lot of girls experience in this late luteal phase. It combats inflammation and again helps with those mood changes and boost our happy hormones. I always think of the Legally Blonde quote with this that's like, exercise makes people happy and happy people just don't kill people. I don't know. It plays on repeat anytime I hear about exercising affecting mood. So if that helps you remember as well. During this phase, also understanding that recovery takes a little bit longer, not only recovery within the workout session itself and longer rest between sets, but also day by day recovery, where after a super intense workout, you might need a little bit longer recovery in between workouts. Mentally, your mood is genuinely affected by this hormonal decline. And I notice this significantly in my own brain. Furthermore, this sleep disruption and this disruption in sleep that we have during this phase compounds all of those negative cognitive and emotional challenges that we might have as a baseline in this phase. So, any sort of stress reducing practices, mindfulness, breath work, have a huge payout in this phase. This is something else that I need to incorporate way more. I have gotten pretty good at some of the fueling and exercise and understanding the mental health challenges that I experienced throughout my phase. It's something that I've become more and more aware of over time. This is truly something that takes time, which I think is why your engagement era is probably the perfect time to start to understand that a little bit better. But this is something that I need to implement more and more because I know my sleep's affected. I know my stress is affected. I know my mental health is affected. And yet I'm still not very good at incorporating breath work and mindfulness and positive self-talk strategies, especially in this phase. So this is maybe not the phase to schedule anything important, anything that you're looking forward to, dress fittings, final hair and makeup, engagement photos, any sort of really intense conversations, all of the things that we've been talking about. This might not be the best phase to schedule them in if you have a say. If you do, however, implementing some of these strategies, breath work, positive self-talk, fueling yourself appropriately. This is why we're doing this sort of an episode so that should any of these things fall within that phase, you have the tools and resources to know how to experiment with your body and figure out what can help you feel the best during whichever phase of your menstrual cycle that you're in. It might be a good phase to dive into that emotional side of your brain where you might write your vows in this phase, write letters to your parents, your mom and dad, your loved ones who have been with you through every step of this dating, engagement, and now future marriage journey. You might want to do more gentle, like inner work where you're not having to perform for anyone, but you're really just trying to be present in this time in your life, in this moment in time, and preparing for what marriage means to you and doing, I guess, a little bit more solo internal deep work. And lastly, be willing to give yourself grace, especially in this phase on your wedding preparation journey. If you notice more anxiety, more stress, more emotional sensitivity during this phase, make sure you call it out. That really helps. Understanding that that's not the real you. That's not real Kelsy. That's what I tell myself, but you can come up with something that works for you. That's not the real you. And then replacing it with, I'm going to check back in 4 or 5 days when my mental state is a little bit more positive and then see how I feel. Your body has been sending you all of this information for all of the phases every single month. The energy peaks, the performance windows, the harder phases, the emotional richness of the slower days. It has all been there. We've just never been taught how to actually read it. So start tracking all 4 phases. Don't worry about catching patterns yet. And slowly over time, you'll start to notice certain changes, notice certain patterns, and start to understand and learn your body on a deeper level. You'll be able to see in real time your relationship with your body transform from confusion to complete literacy. And that's one of the most powerful things you can carry with you into your wedding day and every day after. It is the gift that keeps on giving, the wedding gift that keeps on giving. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. This is one of my absolute favorite topics because it's been life-changing for me. And I hope that in this phase of wedding season, wedding prep, engagement prep, or whatever big phase you're preparing for, even if you're not a bride, that this is something that you can take and implement into your day-to-day life to start to understand and love your body and what it can do for you in a new way. So thank you for joining me, and I'll see you guys again on the next episode of Wellness Fixes the Pod.